A lot of people use possessive language, but they don't realize they're doing it because someone else even said it. And where they said, you have cancer. Cancer is present. By saying have, that's possessive language.
Mhm.
We can create the possibility that this can not be here if we shift the way that we talk about it, where it's outside, right? Like it's,
Yes.
this is an experience in that there is cancer that is present. It ain't mine,
Yeah. I like that.
right? So even then, if you're journaling and whatnot, or even the way that you're thinking about things, you can shift it just by changing the language and saying it ain't mine, right? So if the cancer is present, the cancer is probably not present.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're creating the room for it to just not be there,
Right. I like that.
right?
Hey everyone, welcome to Unapologetically 50 Plus. My name is Angela. So today's episode will be a two-part series, and we are going to be discussing holistic healing for women 50 and beyond and the power of natural remedies. And in this conversation, we'll explore how women can reclaim their health naturally and embrace spiritual, emotional, and physical healing. And the two beautiful ladies I have joining me for this discussion are Nikki Hamilton and holistic health practitioner Denicia Hilton Harper. But before we get started, I have one huge favor to ask. If you find any value or enjoy the content, please remember to like, subscribe, hit the notification, and let YouTube know you want more of this content. It's free, and you're helping me build this community. So thank you. I truly appreciate it. All right, let's get this conversation started. Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us. So today I have two wonderful guests, Nikia Hamilton, who she's been on before, and Denicia Hilton Harper, who is a holistic practitioner. And we're going to get this conversation started and just figure out holistic healing and how we can thrive as Black women, especially those of us over 50. All right. So thank you, Nikia, and thank you, Denicia, for joining me tonight. And I will not keep you guys long because I know it's the end of a work week. And Denicia, I know you're out and on the East Coast, so it's late there for you. So thank you guys again for joining me to have this wonderful conversation. So when we asked Denicia to come on, it was because, Nikki and I had a conversation about holistic healing practices and just trying to find a more holistic approach to our own health care. And Nikki might have some, she might have some, own health questions that she'll, present to you guys, and then Denicia will just ask you your opinion how we can approach our healthcare more on the holistic side, and along with working with our conventional health practices. But before we start, I want to make sure we understand I would like to remind our audience that we are not medical professionals. This content shared on this platform, including discussions and advice, is for informational and educational purposes only. Always check with your advice of your physician or other qualified health professionals. So don't come for us. So anyway. So thank you guys again for joining us. So Denicia, can you give us a little bit of a background on you and what you do?
Sure can. I do want to say, yeah, thanks so much for having me here and welcoming me to your space and all that jazz. It is late, but I will say this is like my type of happy hour, honestly. So it's all great over here. Yeah, so, and I love your disclaimer, by the way. I tell people that I'm like, I am a practitioner, physician, but that doesn't mean that because we're jamming here, you're my patient. So like, that's not how this goes.
Exactly.
But yeah, so my background is actually practicing as a doctor of Oriental medicine, and I have like transitioned and added in that it's a holistic well-being consultant, basically, for those who are, they might be experiencing different signals, is what I like to call them, versus symptoms, and just kind of understanding what messages those signals carry for us. And those messages can come in the form of spiritual, emotional, mental, and physical messages. Over time, I actually also saw that while we were experiencing these signals, it was actually giving us insight into just how we were actually expressing who we are authentically and what is our soul's being, our soul, our purpose, and whatnot. And there were some incongruencies there, and these signals were popping up for people. So that's how the whole lifestyle and just general well-being was coming in. And so the three big patterns that I started seeing was really about it was about boundaries, like navigating boundaries, but then navigating burnout and then also being authentic. So right now, that's what I do. I consult and I created spaces, and I have a really cool thing coming out that gives you some tools and trainings of just can we how can we have a different relationship with our body, in the sense that our body's not working against us. It's not actually working for us. It's simply a messenger. And so then how is it that we can really tune into that and see what we can gain out of that to facilitate our own journey as we're here, right? With this vessel. So like, yeah, that's my little thing. And then I'm so excited about what we're going to be talking about tonight.
Now, I never thought about it when you said, I always think about, yes, health and well-being is mind, body, and spirit. But when you said something about boundaries and being
Yes.
authentic, I never put that together as how that can impact our actual physical wellness. I
Yes.
never thought about that. And
Mhm.
and I have my degree is in holistic health and healing. I've never used it. I just did it for my own personal reasons, but I never thought of that. That is, I'm gonna write that down
That's
right.
good.
I
That was
know,
good.
no, really, I really never thought about boundaries and being your authentic self. How when those boundaries are crossed or where you're not being authentically you, then that has an impact on our health.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay,
So
I
think
just learned.
about like just so it's very, 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 very simple yet very common. Example is when you're getting ready to go do something that you really don't want to do. And then all of a sudden people are like their joints hurt, they got stiff. You physically don't want to move
Right.
Yeah.
to do
Or your
it.
stomach. I know for me,
Ex
that's where everything is my stomach.
yeah. So it's like, and just kind of imagine like even though we're a whole physical form and body, there's pieces that make up aspects. And each of those pieces need to have their own little container so they can do their function. So even then, it's like the esophagus, that lining of the esophagus inside boundary and an outside boundary. The heart has its own little container. Inside, they always call it the endo, and then there's the outsides. All of them have layers. So if you think about it, it's like we physically show
Mhm.
and express boundaries where each of these pieces are operating, as people might say, yeah, they're operating in their lane. And so, so like they would kind of know, right, and things may not feel as comfortable, right? If that boundary was expressed way overstretched out, or if outside pressure is squeezing on it, blood pressure, hypertension.
Wow.
You
Okay.
see what so
Yeah. Yeah.
it's all of this physical expression of what we actually experience in a day to day.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's just shifting that relationship, like I said, to the body and really starting to see the symbology that's also there.
Okay.
I can definitely resonate with what you're saying, especially about boundaries. So last year I was diagnosed with DCIS, breast cancer. Had the
Yes.
surgery. was told that I was to go through 22 treatments of radiation. Told me what the symptoms were. Of course, I can only go through three. And when I
Mm,
made before I stopped, I told the doctor, hey, this is what's happening to me. And my feelings were dismissed, right? And when I think about boundaries, like I'm telling you how I'm feeling. And the doctor's telling me, no, it's not related to radiation. It's related to you coming back and forth to the appointments every day. I was like, no,
yes.
I know, like the signals we were talking about, this something's wrong, right? So I made the choice to stop radiation and look for alternative methods. And when I did that, the doctor was so angry she threatened me.
Oh
Um,
dear.
I knew I've never been treated like that. I knew that it was best that I didn't come in the office because they were trying to get me in the office to talk to her face to face. And I'm like, I already knew it's not going to be a good idea. So when she called me, she says, if you don't do this the easy way and continue radiation, this is coming back. It's coming back worse. We're going to have to do chemotherapy and you're not going to like that. And I'm like, who says that? And I said, well, no, I'm not coming back. I'm going to try different methods. And she said, I don't care if you try to eat right, it's not going to work.
Mm.
And then she said, your other option is to call the surgeon that that removed your tumor and get a mastectomy. I said, a mastectomy for stage zero? Cut my breast off because I won't do radiation. And so later I found out that she had done other patients this way. So the nurse
Mm.
advocate was saying, you are not alone. You are not special. She said, I apologize, but this is what she does when people don't agree with her. So boundaries. Imagine how many people are
Hmm.
going through. I mean, hearing those words already is life changing, right? And if you don't stand in what you believe, like, yeah, I'm taking a chance and banking on me, like this isn't working for me. It has to be something else. But how many other people, wasn't able to stand up, for
Mm.
what they felt. So yeah.
Jeez. I'm so sorry that
Yeah.
happened.
Thank you.
Oh, and
Yeah.
yeah, that really sucks. And I definitely commend you. I don't even know if you are a hugger. I would ask you, can I give you a hug?
I
And
am.
then I'd be like, yeah, like, because I mean, I've heard that like before. And Angela, you actually mentioned this in the intro, and that like, I, so I'm one of those people that, at least on the Eastern medicine side, who sees holistic as all of this, right? So holistic, I wanted to clarify for those who there, holistic to me is that it's all pieces. It's all aspects. And so for me, that even actually expands out to, sure, there's Eastern medicine,
Mhm.
like there's Chinese medicine, Korean, like there's Ayurveda, like all of this, shamanism, like all of it. I'm telling you, like I love all of them as much as it is that there's Western medicine and there's all the tech and all of that modern stuff, right?
Mhm.
Like I love playing in the space of inclusivity in the sense that each one provides a different perspective, a lens, if you will, into seeing someone, right? And so I just wanted to put that out there. Like I'm not like one of those that's down with Western medicine. It's all
Yeah.
this because I actually believe that there's gifts, and for each person it needs to be
Absolutely.
personalized. Like we really need to put the person in personalized medicine, right? Like so that's it there. The other thing I will say, which was like screaming out to me too, was I I have thought about this because I'm like, I kind of want to go and speak about this at different conferences, but and what I'm just not sure when is the time for me to do that. But because I've seen this like years ago, where it was that sense of I'm not quite sure that any physician provider consultant, health coach, whomever truly understands the magnitude of what you can do in the sense of speaking over other people.
Yes.
And so it's like that element of, I'm not even talking religion here. I'm literally talking about the weight and the power and the magnitude that you have. And it's like where I love to teach and show others to actually create their own empowerment, which is what you did. Like
Mhm.
empowerment is EM is right, and that's the prefix. That means from within, right? So not only am I navigating this space of, sure, I might know this and whatnot, but I'm working with somebody and I may have suggestions, I may have recommendations. At the same time, everything is positioned in a way that it's like Nikki knows this is her empowered choice,
Yeah.
right? Like, and there's an element of understanding, like you to check the ego as the practitioner and provider. And then it's like checking to see what are you really here for and what are you really here about, right? Like what are you actually really doing? And so I see this that happened in your experience, but this also happens in Eastern medicine and in the natural health side as well,
Mhm.
right? Like and it's one of those that I feel like so many need to understand that type of responsibility of what we speak over people.
Yeah.
And like my husband calls it non-committal language of mine. And I'm like, because I can't say that it is going to happen. I can say that it may, right?
Mhm.
Like there's a potential
Right.
where what type of environment, like what do we need to do? What do we need to explore in the environment, the internal environment, the external environment? If Nikki says this is I not this does not feel right, right? Like something
Mhm.
is up, something's off, right?
Mhm.
That to me is like big, huge opportunity, right? And then so it had me questioning, like, does she even realize what she's trying to speak over other people? And
Mhm.
then secondly, I do understand that there is the element of malpractice, right? Insurance. We're in a very litigious country, right? So like, and if that's the case, there's still a way to present it to a patient and then
Exactly.
documenting it and then saying, this is what I presented. This was their
Exactly.
choice.
Right.
Like,
And that's
Yes.
what, isn't that what doctor
Exactly.
notes are for? I mean, they take these notes. I gave this information to my patient. He or she refused it.
yeah,
Exactly. That's
Simple
it.
enough. I
right. And
used
I will say, I do want to say this. And because I am very, okay, so I'm trying to see how I want to say this. You can tell I'm very intentional about my language. Very intentional. And considering your audience, Angela, here,
Mhm.
and just thinking about my experience with my grandma and her care and her passing and whatnot, some of the stuff that we discovered. Get your notes if you feel something is off.
Hmm.
And
Medical.
especially,
Are you saying your medical notes?
yeah.
Okay.
And then especially if you're using insurance,
Hmm.
Yes.
get your notes.
Okay.
And because there have been incidences and cases where like a patient down the line may not even be able to get access to like some type of equipment or something like that because a place you went to said that they got that for you. Or they might have, or like the insurance would be like, well, they have to do XYZ in order for this to be covered. And so
Mhm.
there are cases where like there are notes that might be placed in there that may not actually be what happened, but you
Mhm.
wouldn't even know until down the line when it could be rejected by insurance, or let's just say it could even be life insurance that you're trying to get. And then they say, well, this was documented.
Right.
And at that time, it may not have actually happened.
Hmm.
So I do want to say that. And they sometimes will make notes about your behavior
Hmm.
when so it'll paint a picture for someone later on that's reading it, if that makes sense, what I'm trying to say.
Oh yeah.
So it could be Nikki's a non-compliant patient.
It happened. Yes, it's been
Oh,
said. Mm-hmm.
okay. So
Mm-hmm.
okay, there we go. And that could potentially affect treatment
Yeah.
for Nikki later on by
Right.
someone else. And so I do want to say that, like, for you, Nikki, we clearly see that that has been your experience, and then for others, just to be careful as you're going about and you're exploring all of these things, and just making sure that you have your ways of documentation of what happened and the dates, who you spoke with and times and all of that jazz. And don't just rely on the technology. Don't rely on their patient system,
Oh yeah.
because some of that can be changed, right? So you want to actually have your own notes.
Right.
You can look up the codes that they bill for
Mm-hmm.
and make sure, and you can, I mean, codes as in treatment codes as well as diagnostic codes. So sometimes they're diagnosing you with things by on paper that you are not privy of.
Wow.
So that's advocacy is for yourself,
Yeah.
through knowledge and just understanding that that can be there. And even if you don't understand the code,
Mm-hmm.
you really can go and like just Google it if you want. We have Claude, we have Perplexity, ChatGPT, we have all of those now. So
Yes.
you could really just go and plug in a code and ask and see like what's that about. Because I that's happened before. It was like, why did they put this about cholesterol? But nobody's talking to me about cholesterol. But they told me when we talked about my blood work that it was fine. But they would
Mm-hmm.
have diagnosed on paper something else. So if you down the line were trying to go get life insurance and it was one of those that they looked at that information, it's like, right?
Right.
So
Right.
so it just kind of be aware. That's another way to, like I said, to advocate
That's
for
good.
yourself as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I do know, I do want to address this too, because this is another thing, is that the way that people might feel in the sense of someone thinking that that's their only option, being that that's the only person that the treatment must come through.
Mm-hmm.
And so in some ways, some people feel almost trapped by it.
Absolutely.
And so I just want to like reiterate, right? Like I look at it as your care team. Like it's your care team. That includes everybody, right? Like that's friends, that's family, that's your massage therapist, that's that's your salon person, that's whoever. They're all on your care team. But here's the thing: you invite them to your care team, right? So just as much as it is that you would hand out those invitations, or you might send an invitation, who do you invite into your space? And you can also tell them thanks or no thanks, and then like
Right.
and that'd be it, and then go find someone else. So it's like, I know that it's difficult in navigating the healthcare system
Yes.
through the conventional means, especially if people are relying on using health insurance. I do want to say, because we're talking about the other forms of
Yes.
ways to for treatments and whatnot. And I will say, because I've seen this pop up as well. Like, people are like, well, you have to have a lot of discretionary income and all of that. And I want to tell you that's a myth. Sometimes you can actually find herb treatments
Mm-hmm.
to be cheaper than some of the medications. And they might actually, you actually might get success with that and not be on it as long. You might find practitioners that, I mean, the price ranges vary so much,
Mm-hmm.
right? That it's like some do things for free, some do things in group and community so that the per person cost is lower. And some even offer sliding scale. So when people, to anyone that's considering any other modalities outside of Western medicine, and you might have thought like, oh, I'm not going to be able to pay for it. I can't afford this and all of that. Try, just look, like, be open to simply looking, because you never really know what could be available. And
Right.
even then, if it's not through them, they might be able to refer you,
Okay.
right, to someone else. So, I did want to, I did want to address that part because I know
Mhm.
that's a huge one
Yeah.
of the barriers. I want to say, like, one of the barriers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
Thank you for that.
you're welcome.
yeah, that was that.
That's some good information.
Yeah, that whole explanation was wonderful. So
Yeah.
thank you, Denicia. So my question, so when facing a serious diagnosis like breast cancer,
Mhm.
how does someone would begin the journey of treating themselves holistically? And
Mhm.
we talked about mentally, physically, spiritually. So what would be your suggestion, their first step?
So, okay. Um, this just screamed out at me was to acknowledge the shock.
Ooh.
Okay. One of So in my lineage that I've learned and I practice with Eastern medicine, there is actually a pattern and a diagnosis that we look for, which is heart shock, and that can now what we hear a lot lately is trauma. Okay, and so, but I want to at least show that traumatic and experience the body to actually in the energy just feel shock does not necessarily mean like it's an accident, a car accident, or it doesn't mean that there's like some type of attack or anything like that. It can actually simply just be, this was a surprise to me,
Yeah.
and and acknowledge that. And the way that how I see things too is that when that happens, the whole system is now in response, right?
Mhm.
And so it is this whole fight or flight, freeze or fawn moment, right? Like, and then there's a bunch of stuff starts happening,
Yeah.
and I do want to say, like, please address that, or acknowledge it, become aware of it, even actually look at the way that your behavior comes out, because the behaviors that you kind of go to automatically will give you more insight too, right? So is it that all of a sudden you're clinging to other people, you went down rabbit holes researching things, or you went into like immediate plan mode, like what's our next thing, da, 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 da. If this is not an emergency, like a medical emergency, right? Like you can kind of really just observe your behavior, and it'll give you that insight as to how you're really processing the shock. Now, and I say that too because that's one of the things. If there's this shock that's here, then we can actually look at it as a block to treatment. And so sometimes it's actually, we need to actually nourish the heart. And when we say heart, I'm not just talking the heart in the chest. You got to think like that's vessels, and these vessels are everywhere
Yeah.
around the body, right? So that means then that this system, I'm doing like the shaking thing because that's how it kind of is. It's like this, the energy, the chi just like is shocked. It scatters. It's like, wait, what? And people feel it, like they feel their heart drop.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So like we're speaking that language. So it's like address that. And sometimes it's that so when to answer the question, I mean, I've been answering it, Angela, but like if it's that first step, acknowledging the shock and then seeing how you can support the shock. like so support the heart, support the circulation, to support to get the nervous system, that sympathetic side of the nervous system, to simmer and to calm itself. And because that parasympathetic side, that opposite side, is where a lot of that healing and that capacity to heal comes from. So easy ways, simple ways to think about it is like, you can employ using flower essences, right? They're very gentle. They work on the energetic body, but you do see and feel the changes. I like using those. And some herbs, but like when I do the herbs, it's like I customize it to that person and how things are presenting. And with flower essences, usually they're a little bit easier in the sense of people can look and see, what is this flower like, what is its capacity to interact with the energy system. Because if you can get that at least to calm down some,
Mhm.
because I want to reiterate what happens when there is this fight or flight thing that's happening. The blood flow to the brain, and especially to the part where you're making choices in the frontal, is not getting blood flow as well, you know? So it's just, how can we calm it, right? How can we calm ourselves? I said the chi scatters, it spreads out. When I'm talking about whole, we're trying to bring the wholeness back in, right?
And what do you mean by chi?
So that chi
For
is
those who
that,
don't
yeah. So I would say the simplest would be like the life energy is how many might describe it. It's this like, you don't see the chi, you see the effects of it,
Mhm.
and it's like, it's in everything, it's in us. It's like, it is life, right? Like, people think like, oh, this is just an object, it's just my water bottle. No, it carries life, it has that in it as well.
energy. Yeah.
It's this energy, yeah. And so we look at the flowing of that. How is that flowing? Is it feeling kind of tight? Is it feeling kind of slow and sluggish? The chi and the blood flow together. And
Mhm.
so, and the mind, we say the mind is housed in the blood. So as there's all this conversation about like emotions being stored in the body, and it's these various emotions in Chinese medicine, they are, in the sense that these emotions are associated with the organ systems that all flow throughout the body, and they have their role in the body.
Mhm.
And so when you experience these emotions, there's certain systems that are going to respond, because what we're seeing as these symptoms, aka signals, they're telling you, I'm peeping something. Knock, knock, knock.
Right.
I'm just trying to get your attention here. And I just want to let you know a little bit of something. So like, so
Yeah.
I would say the first thing really is to acknowledge the shock to you and this system.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
Like every time you say that word, it just maybe I'll hear crying, but
Oh no, hon. Yeah.
um, as soon as I got the diagnosis, I think I went into sabotage mode. I have children, I have grandbabies. Immediately, even though in my mind I was speaking, this is this is easy, it's stage zero. This is something I can get through. This is something I could get to on the other side. But there was a sorry, ladies.
you don't have
Don't
to
apologize.
apologize.
There was another side of it where I was like, okay, let me make sure my babies are okay. So I wasn't and am not taking care of me like I should be because I wanted to make sure everybody else was good. And I haven't had time to process
Mm.
since last year for me what that statement was or how that statement made me feel. You have cancer. Um, I have been in go mode since then. I have a daughter this is her last year of high school. She's picking colleges, and I just want to make sure she's doing the right thing. A son graduating from a 2 year college, making sure he picks the right 4 year. Oldest daughter just delivered twins, helping her. And I've never addressed where am I in
Mm.
all of this. Um, this probably be the first time I just really thought about it. I know I wake up every night, so I've clenched my jaw. I have to pop my jaw because I've been clamping down on it so much. Or I'll eat my feelings or my emotions, and I do not know how to start to heal or acknowledge the shock of this.
You just did it.
Yeah, thank you.
You just did it.
You,
Thank
at
you.
any time, if you want to go off camera, you go right ahead, sweetie.
Thank you. Wasn't planning on shedding tears. I'm a thug. Steven. Thank you for the space, though.
You're
You're
welcome.
most welcome.
Welcome. I'm
Thank you.
glad this is, starting the process. So,
Yeah.
um,
And I do want to, if I can
oh, go
reflect
right
real
ahead.
quick too, is Nikki, thank you so much. Like seriously, the vulnerability and all of it, right? And what you just shared and what you acknowledged, this is something that when I see this with people who are like, okay, let me go holistic journey and whatnot, is there's a way, it's very subtle. It starts out very subtle, but then it just kind of happens. Is that they do tend to not, they'll miss when there has been healing happening because there's a certain look or picture or something that they're looking for, and and it's it's really awesome to have like people in your sphere and in your space that is there to be able to say, Nikki, you already did it. You already started,
Yeah.
right? Right? You already did it. You already started. And what happens, like, even you have your kids, right? Like, what happened when all those times they'd be like, Mom, 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 Mom,
Yes.
Mom, Mom. And all you did was just kind of be like, what?
Yeah.
They just wanted your attention, right? And so, in some ways, that's what's happening here. And simply acknowledging and becoming aware is one form of healing. And this would be a great time to tell you too, like when I think about healing and when I think about health, I like to tell people, do you know what the root meaning is? And I'm like, wait, why? Wait, there's what? The root meaning is whole. When you are aware of that wholeness, which includes what came up for you, Nikki, those thoughts that are there, like that clearly in your subconscious, you're processing because it's waking you up in the jaw, right? It's that you're simply becoming aware of it, that it's there. And that is a part of the wholeness. It's when we deny those aspects that things will start. Mom, like, mom, it starts getting louder, right? And like more frequent. And then, like, I did want to address as well, like with breast cancer, and you kind of think about like that area, and it's one of it's not the first place, but it is the second of nourishing others.
Yeah.
And so that is a pattern that you tend to see as well with those who experience breast cancer. And you did, you were spot on. Like I was saying, observe the behavior after, and you got it. You started seeing the behavior. And that awareness now, guess what happens once we have that awareness? Conscious choice, baby. Because that like habitual, I'm just going in that way, that was more unconscious. That's habit. This is also why I'm not a fan of everybody creating these habits and routines, because you've just moved a lot of stuff to the unconscious, and then it just happens, right? And that's how the body's going to function. That's how it's going to go. But when you establish more ritual, you put meaning into it. It brings you into the present. And so now, Nikki, I see you at this great, cool juncture. Who's like, oh my gosh, I just became aware of all of this.
Yeah.
And what's my conscious choice now? And there's so many different ways that you can go, right? But I think that I did want to acknowledge that, and I wanted to show you and reflect, like, whew, the healing has already started. It's begun. You got some great nourishing stuff coming out of those tears. That's all the feel good hormones and neurotransmitters. That's all healing signals right then and there. And I feel like you had chills and goosebumps because I had them all over my body.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
That's the nervous system also speaking.
Yeah.
Saying, what? What? This is different.
Yeah.
We can kind of like chill a little bit, and they're starting to send all the hormones and neurotransmitters are like, y'all, something's changing, something's up. It's, and it's just that's opening up circulation,
Yeah.
and there is that flow, and it's there. Now, could we still support that even more? Heck yeah. Just acknowledge and celebrate the step even right now. Right?
Yes.
And then it just if you feel like you got to do some deep breaths, go ahead and go for it.
Mm-hmm.
I just felt it. So I'm like, I think you are. I think that's you that I'm picking up on.
Yeah.
And you can like, it might feel a little bit scary. I'm seeing it in your shoulders because you're doing this and you're starting to lean them forward
Yeah.
because it's scary and you're going to try to protect yourself.
Mm.
So ground out, put your feet flat on the floor. And then if you can, just like kind of roll with it with the shoulders.
Yeah.
I love like when you roll them up and then you roll them back and then just let them fall. And then you'll kind of feel like a neutral space. But what'll happen is the muscle in the front and the back, they'll actually feel more equal to each other.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And for some, when they may have been in that other posture for so long, it can feel like a stretch to the front, you know, and especially along the collarbones. And so that's just letting you know, like, okay, I have been in this almost protective mode for a bit. And so whenever you feel comfortable and safe, like in a place like that, where it's like, okay, I'm here, I can ground out easily.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
And so I did want to paint this picture for other people as well. Like that, what we were doing, what we were talking about was all of those. It was the spiritual aspects, it was the emotional, it was the mental, and the physical. We just saw the physical response to the spirit, emotion, and mental. But we incorporated all of them. Not one is superior to the other. They each play a role on the team. So we need to address them. and just be like, all right, I got you. I peep your game. You're telling me this. And I think about it like an organization, right? Like some people, they think it's just all about the CEO. They think it's just all about the C-suite. The thing is, though, the company can't actually do what it does without your front line.
Right.
And
Right.
though it's just like, so to me, I'm like, everybody important. Not, we can't run this without you. We can't run that without you. Like everyone's important. Everyone wants to have a voice, right? And so that's what we're doing here.
Yeah.
We're just putting ourselves in a position to hear what the other is saying. Something else I wanted to point out that Nikki, you said, um, this also facilitates our relationship with diagnoses. A lot of people use possessive language, but they don't realize they're doing it because someone else even said it. And where they said, you have cancer.
Yeah.
Cancer is present. By saying have, that's possessive language.
Mhm.
We can create the possibility that this can not be here if we shift the way that we talk about it, where it's outside, right? Like it's,
Yes.
this is an experience in that there is cancer that is present. It ain't mine,
Yeah. I like that.
right? So even then, if you're journaling and whatnot, or even the way that you're thinking about things, you can shift it just by changing the language and saying it ain't mine, right? So if the cancer is present, the cancer is probably not present.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're creating the room for it to just not be there,
Right. I like that.
right? So
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's something else I would say that could be supportive, as well.
Right.
Thank you for that.
You're so welcome.
I'll be right back.
Okay. So, what does now we talked about, because you probably have already touched upon this,
Mhm.
but when we are talking about detoxing, I know there's detoxing the food, what you eat, you know, maybe detoxing with herbs, but what about detoxing is, I guess for Black women, especially over 50, that's physically, emotionally, and energetically before we start holistic treatment.
Mhm.
So, because you kind of touched upon it, just talking to Nikki right there. But is there anything else, any other way or ways that we can detox that physical, emotional, and energetic before we
Yeah.
start our holistic, treatments or, just going down that holistic path?
Yeah. Okay, so I would say to really, okay, understand that this whole time that we've been talking, we've been detoxing.
Mm, okay.
Okay. I'm breathing. I just cleared out and detoxed respiratorily.
Mm,
Okay. I'm actually sweating. Like when I get into the intuitive stuff, I sweat sometimes. So like I just detoxed.
okay.
Okay. So I wanted to say that because some people tend to think it needs to be this great big to do when it comes to detoxing, but it doesn't. Now, can you do a concentrated time period?
Mhm.
Yes, you can. And I want to say that because for some of the like trendy detoxes out there, some people experience really uncomfortable symptoms, like
Mhm.
really uncomfortable symptoms. And so and so when I say that, it could be like digestive upsets, it could be sleeping pattern disturbances, it could be rashes, it could be all of that, right?
Right.
All of these are ways that the body is actually, yeah, it could be potentially like getting rid of stuff all at one time. It's dumping. And
Mhm.
it's called a Herxheimer effect. So I did want to let people know that because sometimes you can even run a fever, and it can feel like a body ache. So it could feel like flu like.
So that's if you're doing a physical detox, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
But, and I will say that some people, even with the physical, because you're a whole being, right?
Mm-hmm.
So some are going with a physical detox, but there's a spiritual component to
Okay.
it. So, you know, like, so it's some of them are playing, it's both, it's all of that together for them.
Mm-hmm.
But I will, no, but if you're doing a very strong physical, like this is just why I'm doing it, you might experience the Herxheimer effect, is what it's called. And some people will call it Herxing. And how you know that that's happening is because, like I said, you'll get all of this, like, it can feel really uncomfortable. And then after a couple of days, sometimes 3 days, usually they'll start to dissipate if you continue on that regimen, whatever one you're choosing.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I like making sure that the pathways are open so that if you're stirring up stuff internally and it has nowhere to go, so that's what you're feeling is actually an immune system response.
Okay.
So where things were probably cocooned, literally biofilms, were cocooned in different tissues and different areas of the body, like with these detoxes, now you're trying to clear that out and the immune system has activated. And so that's why I was saying there's this fever, there's this body aches, there's like the digestive system upset. Some people lose their appetite, like all of that stuff. And so if you can stick it out, some of them just go ahead and stick it out. Some of them like reduce it so that it's not as uncomfortable for them. And then I will say that that's more definitely more physical. The emotional stuff and the mental emotional ones are things such as like it could be like a tech detox, right? Or even a silent, say you do a silent retreat or a meditation retreat. That is a form of detoxing as well. And you'll go through the herxing, quote unquote, because of like all the rapid thoughts. Oh my God, now I'm sitting here and now I don't have anything to do. I can't look at my phone. I can't do this. Like, and then, so like you really get uncomfortable. But then when you stick it out,
Yeah.
all of a sudden it's like peace.
Yes.
So I can, if, so let's think and imagine like we have a jar, like a mason jar of sand and some water. And then you did this, that sand and water, they already kind of separated out, right? Like, so like the sand's already kind of at the bottom, the water's kind of there. Everybody has their place. And then here comes this detox that's like, comes in. We just shook that jar. And now all of it's like, where do we go? What do we do? Everybody's intermingling that wasn't intermingling before. And so, like, and then as it continues, though, it starts to settle out, right? Now, the difference is when it's something like a detox, there's a pathways that's open in that jar, which can happen for some people because those pathways are not as clear and open. It kind of just resettles in the jar.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's where it is that you, like some people, I'm like, do you sweat or glisten, as I call
Right.
it? Like, is that happening? Like, also, how are the bowel movements?
Mm-hmm.
Are they every day? Are they actually formed in full? Is there pain or is there not pain that
Right.
happens before, during, or after? Also, during that time frame, there's some that are perimenopausal or
Mhm.
already in menopause or postmenopausal. And so you'll get the effects like urinary patterns might change as well, right? So like all of those are detox pathways, quote unquote. And so if they're not necessarily open and optimally functioning, then there could be some more discomfort, if you will. But I said that in the beginning about the detoxing just with us talking because I want people to just understand that it's a day-to-day thing.
Okay.
Day-to-day thing. So what can you put, what can you make sure on a day-to-day that you're optimally clearing out toxins,
Yeah.
physical toxins, emotional toxins, mental toxins, It's assessing the environment externally and internally. We respond to our environments,
Right.
right? This is why there's like those programs that say, who's around you? Like, some people won't even, they cannot leave a facility if they're going to the same place that influenced them coming in, right?
Mm.
And Dr. Mario Martinez is, he's really cool. He like studied centenarians, and they did this whole study where they took a group. And so you want to talk about detoxing, right? Like I'm telling you, watch your friends and who you're talking to and around, right? So people make the memes and the reels thinking that it's all funny and he about constantly talking about your body ailments, right? And all the appointments, doctor's appointments and all the tests and everything, like it's a very like that's focus of conversation for so many.
Mm.
Mhm.
Dr. Martinez tested it and took the people, they did all the blood tests and everything, so they had their baseline, took them out of their environments and they had them somewhere else. They didn't change their food or anything. People's blood markers changed for the better.
Oh, because they were out of that negative
And they,
negative environment.
so, okay, so this is how I look at it. I look at it as if people want to talk about like belonging and community, right? Like it's really more about assessing in that type of external environment, what do you want to belong in? Like asking yourself, what is it that I would like to connect with people on?
Okay.
Mhm.
And then that type of assessment can guide you, right, into the groups, the communities, the people, like even if it is family and some people are like I ride or die for my family, okay, maybe it's 30 seconds instead of like a week. Like but
Right.
like seriously, because if it's perpetually repeated and then that's your way of feeling like you belong to a group or community is through that thing,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it could actually support you in behaviors that's going to continue. I want to still belong with these people.
Mhm.
So even if it's not changing the people, it could actually just be simple as changing the what you talk about or what do we go do. So Nikki, if you know that the emotional eating is one thing, perhaps just your team of people, maybe y'all find like a painting activity
Mhm.
or something where you still feel like you're connected with someone, right? And then the emotional processing that can happen though through painting, through art, through a somatic experience.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like, does that make sense? And
Absolutely.
so like it's finding that it's those types of environments and just seeing like we're in a great big petri dish, and in that petri dish there's medium. That's what the cells feed off of. And that's what Dr. Bruce Lipton saw. They put the same stem cells in different petri dishes, but the medium that was in the petri dishes, they saw that those stem cells actually grew to what was in the medium,
Mm.
what was in the dish.
Mhm.
So it proved that actually environment played more of a role in how the physical body will present itself.
Mm.
So that's that link that I was saying with the authentic expression of oneself and boundaries that I was talking about in the beginning.
Yes.
Does it make sense now? Like it's kind of like
Mhm.
all coming. And that is holistic in the way of it's addressing all of these aspects of a whole person. And when we can bring them together and it's not necessarily positive or negative. Like I try not to actually use that language because some people feel like, oh, I don't want to say that because that's too negative. Oh, I don't want to say that because it's too positive. And I'm like, it's just neutral. I just want to be aware of it happening. Because then once again, if we can just be aware of it and acknowledge it, then we can address it. But the more you repress that, it's not that you're repressing that, you're actually repressing yourself. And in Chinese medicine, when there's like that movement, the chi flow that's supposed to move, but when there is repression, is squeezing, is starting to stop it from the outside, we're slowing that flow down. Yet it's gonna now keep building on each other, keep building and building and building. And then that's where it is that we start to see the expression of stagnation and repression. It can come out in the form of tumors. It can come out in the form of cysts. It can come out like right in all these different ways, polyps and whatnot. Excuse me. But when we can actually try to open up the pathways, give the body what it needs for that flow to happen optimally, then that's where some of it, like the immune system now knows. The natural killer cells will really start amping up. The biofilms that can cover tumors start breaking down so that the immune system is more effective. Right? Like, so could there be outside help? Yeah, it can. While at the same time becoming familiar and honoring, like, ooh, where have I been repressing myself?
Mm-hmm.
So then that means that there's this potential that I could actually open up. Where can I open up that flow? And simply by opening the flow, the blood can come through, and it's bringing oxygen, it's bringing minerals, it's bringing nutrients, right? To
Mm-hmm.
all of these areas. And so when it's that authentic expression of oneself, it is, yeah, like, where are we opening? Where are we closing?